Can I just get somebody to type in the Q&A box that they can see my screen and they can hear me okay, please? Brilliant. Thank you very much, folks. So we're going to get started. This webinar probably take about 30 minutes to 40 minutes, maybe less, maybe more, who knows. We're going to allow time for questions at the end, but if you have any questions, feel free to type them in the question box. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm doing about one a week at the moment. Today's is on team culture and communication, which is more important than ever as we return back to work. That's my cleverly titled webinar today. And can I just say the builders who are working on the restaurant below my office have a motto. And their motto is, when Andy's doing a webinar, we should be using power tools. So they were using them earlier. I'll apologize in advance if we hear any background noise. Hopefully all is quiet now and will remain quiet for the next half hour, 45 minutes. And the reason I chose this topic was basically on the back of a number of conversations I've been having with business owners around getting ready to go back to work. And people were excited, obviously, to be going back to work. And teams were also excited to be going back to work. But there was a little kind of undercurrent of worry around what's it actually going to be like when we go back. People are nervous. People are nervous about getting sick. People are nervous about getting other people sick. People simply have been off work for 6, 7, 8 weeks. Who knows how long it's been now. And they might just need a little bit of time to brush off the cobwebs and settle back into a working routine. So things are going to be different when we go back. And I think some business owners that I've been talking to are pretty much just worried. What's the environment going to be like? You know, what are going to be the attitudes? Are people going to get along? Are people going to be eyeing each other up with suspicion every time somebody coughs, or you know, every time somebody touches their face, and is the mask you're wearing the right mask? And you know, there's just a lot of uncertainty and a lot of basically discomfort around going back to work. So I thought I would just do a little bit around this and maybe give you guys some ideas that you can take away with you and go back to your business and make sure that you've got a positive and cooperative culture amongst your team when you go back. And we'll talk about what culture actually means. So the agenda for today is, as always, we're going to start off with a little bit about mindset. We'll talk about the rules of the game and culture statements, a little bit about how we should be communicating at work in terms of assertiveness, and a little bit around communication rhythm as well. So communication rhythm meaning, how are we keeping our culture alive in the business? How are we making sure that everybody is reminded of the rules of the game all the time? And then I'll teach you a little strategy called a Wiffle, and we'll do Q&A at the end. So for those of you who've worked with me or who know my stuff, you'll be familiar with what's coming next. For those of you who haven't, I can tell you right now, this could be your whole culture statement right here. So there's one slide might be enough. Once I show this slide, I might see the numbers of attendees actually start to drop off, because that might be enough for you to go away with. But we always start off any presentation or workshop I do with one of maybe 4 what we call generalized principles. And this one's called being above and below the line. So the line here is the line of choice, and that's this horizontal line down here in the middle. And we choose whether we want to play above this line or below this line all of the time. It's our own decision to make, it's our own choice. And below this line are all of the things that we do to stop us getting the results that we want to get. By blaming other people for the results we get, or blaming other people for how they responded when we communicated to them. Or we make excuses. We make, you know, what's our favorite excuses these days? Don't have time, our business is closed, our team are on furlough, there's uncertainty, we don't have any money. You know, all these excuses we make, and all an excuse is a reason not to do something. It's all an excuses. It's another word for a reason not to do something. Same with blame. We're getting the results we're getting in our business because of the government, because of our customers, because of our competition undercutting us on price. Whoever we're blaming, what we're saying is it's not our fault and therefore we can't do anything about it. Well, of course, you can do something about anything. You just need to take responsibility for everything that's going on in your business, whether or not it was your fault. So here's the thing. You didn't cause COVID-19. You can't stop it, and you can't impact the government's response to it. You can't impact when the government's going to lift lockdown. You can't impact any of these things. But they've happened to you, and now you own it. Now it's in your lap to do something with it. And we call that taking ownership and responsibility. You know, how are you going to respond to the events that have happened to you? So you didn't cause it, but you now own it, and you can do something about it. So this is a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we're below this line, what we're talking about is we're talking about the reasons why things happened. In other words, the problems. And what we focus on, we bring into our lives, and we get more of it. So when we focus on problems, we get more problems. When we're above this line, what we're doing is we're taking action. We're saying, do you know what? I didn't start it, but it's my problem now. And if I want to overcome this issue, I'm going to have to be accountable and do something about it. And that's hard to do. For one thing is we don't want to put our hands up and say, I own this. And another is we've got to do some work, right? We got to take some action. We might have to step out of our comfort zone. We might need to change the way we do business moving forward forever. We might need to have difficult conversations with employees or with ourselves for that matter. We might need to step out of our comfort zone, and we might need to learn some new things. So being above the line is hard, but it's also a self-fulfilling prophecy, because what are we doing? Well, we're dealing with the issues, and that's a great thing. So this is something that you can teach your team, and it's something that you can have as a rule in your business where, hey guys, you know, we can't control everything that goes on. What we can certainly do is we can control how we respond. And so we don't blame other people. We don't make excuses. We certainly don't stick our head in the sands with denial and say, and just hope things are going to blow over. We put our hands up and say, do you know what? I've got this. This is on me to do something about it. I didn't cause it. It's not my fault, but none of that matters who caused it, whose fault it is. What matters is how we're going to deal with it. So certainly would encourage you to print this off. Email me and I'll send you a copy, andrewgoldberg@actioncoach.com. And I'll send you a copy of this, but it's 6 words. It's not hard to remember. Put them up on a wall, teach your team, watch this recording again. Hopefully it'll record okay. And teach your team this. All right, but at the very least, for the next half hour or so, let's all make a commitment to be above that line. And remember that your team, your culture, your business, it's all a reflection on you. It's all on you. So here's another culture statement that you could basically take away and implement in your business without going to any further slides in this webinar. And it's called the game changer. And the game changer goes like this. It's say, do, co. It's 3 words. In fact, it's not even 3 words. It's 2.5 words. Say and do, and then co is short for a word. And it's called the game changer, and I'll explain why, but it goes like this. Number 1, say what you're going to do. So whoever's following say, do, co, whoever's obeying these rules of the game, say what you're going to do. And that means make a commitment. Here is what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to do it. Here's when I'm going to do it. So we make a commitment. And then do is do what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, the way you said you would do it. I've got a postcard behind me, and at the top it says, Top 10 Secrets of Business Success, 10 Rules for Business Success. I nearly got it right, by Larry Winget, who's one of my favorite authors and speakers. And number 1 on the 10 rules for business success is do what you said you would do, when you said you would do it, the way you said you would do it. We call that integrity. Having integrity is you do what you say you're going to do. So step number 2 in Say Do Co is do what you said you would do all of the time. So far, so good, right? Now here's the game changer. Game changer is number 3. And this can completely transform the culture in your organization, the attitudes in your organization, how people hold each other accountable. And it can change the productivity of your team, of course, which is ultimately the name of the game. And that's number 3, and that's co. And co is short for communicate. And what it means is communicate immediately if you're not going to be able to do what you said you would do. Does that make sense? So let me just repeat it really quick now. Say what you're going to do what you said you would do, but communicate immediately if you can't do what you said you would do. Now, let me explain why this is a game changer. When a team member doesn't do what they said they were going to do, what is the question that you ask them probably every time? Is it, why didn't you do it? Of course it is. That's the natural question. Oh, you didn't get that thing done. Why didn't you do it? And then what does your team member say back to you? An excuse, right? How come they give you an excuse? Well, you asked for it, because when you ask somebody why they didn't do something, that's all they can give you as an excuse. It's the only thing they can give you. You asked for it. And we don't like excuses. We want to do away with excuses. So what Say Do Code teaches us is you need to come to me if you think you're not going to be able to do what you said you were going to do before it's due, if that makes any sense. So it passes responsibility and accountability onto the person to proactively come to you prior to you going to them and saying, so did you do that thing? No, they're going to come to you and say, you know, I've got to do this thing. It's due tomorrow, but a problem has come up. Now, there's still a problem. They're still not going to get the thing done that they said they were going to do, but they've taken ownership of this and they've gone to you, and now you can deal with it in advance. You can address the issue, find another way to get it done, help this person through their challenge. But it's completely different than somebody just not doing what they said and then you going to them and asking them for an excuse. So again, this is a good one to replay this video. And I know it's 3 simple words or 2.5 simple words, but it's a pretty deep, powerful concept. Get people taking ownership and making commitments to their actions and owning up when they're not going to be able to do something so that you can prevent it, if that makes any sense. So that's Say Do Code, the game changer. We need to have a culture statement in our business. Every company should have a culture statement. I'm going to show you mine in a couple minutes. But a lot of people roll their eyes when we talk about culture statements. And you know, I've often wondered, why do people roll their eyes? Why do people poo-poo culture statements? And there's really only one answer, and that's because they've had culture statements in the past, or they've worked for companies that have had culture statements in the past, and those culture statements mean nothing. They were printed up, they look really nice, they've been put into a frame, and then they've put into some managing director's drawer or some business owner's drawer, never to be seen again. And obviously we want to avoid that happening. So let's talk about what a culture statement is, first of all. A culture statement, or rules of the game, because the two can kind of be interchangeable. A culture statement answers some of the following questions. And the first is, what kind of environment do we want to be working in? What sort of place do we want to work? We spend 1/3 of our lives at work. And 80% of employees are dissatisfied with their jobs, and that means they're dissatisfied with their boss or with the environment in which they work. So we need to be able to define what kind of environment do we want to work in. And we need to define the behaviors with which we use when we deal with each other and communicate with each other. What are the rules in terms of dealing with each other? And we're going to talk more about that today. How do we deal with our customers and our suppliers? And how do we expect our customers and suppliers to deal with us? Because your rules of the game are not just internal. Your rules of the game in your business apply to everybody that's involved with your business. Your customers need to abide by your rules of the game. So if you have a rule that says, you know, we speak to each other with respect all of the time, and you've got a customer who's speaking to one of your employees disrespectfully, then you need to teach that customer or remind that customer of your rules of the game. And it's expectations. What do we expect from ourselves in terms of performance, commitment, motivation, attitude? What should we be expecting from management in terms of how we get treated by our managers and by our leaders? And we get treated with respect, and our performance is recognized by management leadership, whatever is important to you and your team. And what are management's expectations of us? You know, they expect us to deliver the best, you know, or are we expected to be absolute top class, top in our field? You know, what are the levels of expectation that management have of team? And it's just a few examples of what a culture statement can cover. I'm going to show you mine. This is the Action Coach points of culture here, 14 points of culture, and I'll just let you read that. No, I'm kidding. You won't be able to read that, but I'm going to zoom in a minute. But let me just explain what these are. These are 14 rules of the game. So again, you can call it points of culture. You can call it rules of the game. You can have both. There might be a slight difference between the two. But these points of culture were the first thing that I was taught when I first met people from Action Coach and was exploring the idea of buying an Action Coach franchise. This was the first thing they showed us. And what I've discovered is every single person that gets involved with Action Coach, when you ask them why they got involved, one of the top reasons, if not the top reason, is they bought into the points of culture. And not only did they say they bought into the points of culture, but what they learned very quickly was that everybody else in Action Coach really is committed to meeting these points of culture and obeying these rules of the game. Are we 100% perfect? No, of course not. We're human. But we do our very best to live, eat, and breathe these points of culture. So let me just pull these points of culture up, and I'm going to hopefully Zoom is going to behave itself and I can zoom in on these things. All right. So hopefully you can see these a little bit closer now, and I can scroll down a little bit. So I'm not going to read this to you, and I'm not going to go through all of these. I'm just going to share a few examples. So point of culture number 3 is integrity. And integrity means I always speak the truth. What I promise is what I deliver. And if I ever think I'm not going to be able to deliver, I always clear it up immediately. So which is basically the code from Say Do Co. Excellence is one of our points of culture. Good is not good enough. We are top class. We want to deliver excellent service, excellent sales, excellent content all of the time. Point of culture number 7 is education. We are constantly learning and growing. I've never been involved with an organization that didn't spend so much and invest so much time and money in learning and reading and training and stuff like this. And point of culture number 10 is fun. You know, what's happened to fun these days? Are we making sure that everybody's having a bit of fun? I'm not going to talk too much about fun today, but it's one of the points of culture. We need to remember, guys, to have some fun and not take ourselves too seriously. And I was going to make that the last one, but I also just have to point to number 14, which is probably the most important point of culture we have in Action Coach. And that's why it was left for last. And that's abundance. And what abundance means is there's enough for everybody. It's a mindset. We have to have an abundant mindset. And an abundance mindset says, there's enough time for me to give to anybody. There's plenty of customers out there to be won. There's plenty of sales out there to be won. There's plenty of customers out there for everybody. There's plenty of money to be made. The opposite of an abundance mindset is a scarcity mindset. I don't have enough time to give you. There isn't enough money to be made. Me and my competitors are all scrapping for the same small share of business. And of course, just like above and below the line, that scarcity mindset is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If we think that way, then that's what we're going to get. If we think that COVID-19 is going to kill our industry and kill our marketplace and kill our business, that's probably what's going to happen because we're behaving that way. So we need to be really, really careful that we keep this abundance mindset with our teams, with each other, with our colleagues, even in times of uncertainty and in times of difficulty. If you want to email me, I can send you these points of culture, but they're on our website, right? These are not private. This is not an internal document. We want our customers, we want our suppliers, we want our strategic partners, we want everybody involved with Action Coach to know that we take these rules of the game really, really seriously. We abide by them the best we can. And most importantly, we hold each other accountable, and we have permission to hold each other accountable to living by these rules of the game. So when you create rules of the game in your business, it's really, really important that you teach your teams that it's okay to call each other out. So we've got, one of our rules of the game is communication up here. In point of culture number 5, it says we don't gossip, right? We don't use gossip. So when we go to an Action Coach conference, or when we're talking to another coach and we start gossiping about somebody else, the other coach can call us up on that and say, no, we don't do that here. We need to be reminded in a friendly way, but we need to be reminded that we don't do that here. And then that's okay. So give your team permission to hold each other accountable. All right, let's go back to the slides, and we're just gonna share the screen again. All right, somebody just want to drop me a comment in the Q&A that they can see the PowerPoint again that says Action Coach's 14 points of culture. That would be good, thanks. For those of you who've been on a few of my webinars, you'll know that Zoom is a learning process. So just check the comments here. Thank you very much for that. So another thing you need to keep in mind with a culture statement. A culture statement is like the boundaries of a football pitch or any kind of sports field, right? That's got boundaries. Not baseball, because baseball's boundaries are a little bit loose, but we want tight boundaries. And what that means is we've got to play within the boundaries of our rules of the game. They are tightly defined. Our rules are clearly defined. Everybody knows what gossip means. Everybody knows what fun means. Everybody knows what abundance means and clear communication, et cetera, et cetera. So your rules of the game are clearly defined, and they're what we call tight, and it creates the context for how we behave and communicate in our business. So far, so good, right? However, we also need to remember that we're dealing with people, and people are complicated. People are different. We all have different behavioral styles and communication styles, and we all come from different backgrounds, and we all have different DNA. And so the rules are going to be interpreted loosely and slightly differently by everybody, and we call that the content. The content is the actual interpretation of things as opposed to the context, which creates the boundaries. So the point is, make sure your boundaries are clear and tight, and nobody's allowed to step outside those boundaries. However, within those boundaries, people are going to be different. There's going to be a slightly looser interpretation. So the main thing is be clear on the boundaries with your team, but accept that people are going to behave slightly differently within those boundaries. We call that loose versus tight culture. Let's take a quick drink here. And another thing to remember is as you create rules of the game for your business, what that means is that your standards are going up. You're raising the level in your business. And as you raise the level, as you raise the standards, keep in mind that not everybody's going to want to come with you on this journey. Now, who are the people that are not going to want to come with you on this journey? Well, most of the time, they're going to be the people that don't want to raise their standards because they recognize, maybe not at a conscious level, but at certainly at a subconscious level, they recognize that they're the ones that go against the culture of the company. They're the ones that are going to get caught out. They're the ones that are below the line, blaming everybody else, making excuses. And so when we really implement rules of the game in our business, there can be a little, you could speed up the attrition levels, if that makes any sense. And I've done this with companies where, I've done team alignments and workshops with clients where we taught them the rules of the game, and an employee didn't show up for work the next day, and that was it. So it's a fantastic way to, kind of eliminate some of the poison in an organization without actually having to fire anybody. Because not everybody's going to want to come with you on this journey, and that's okay, because what you do is you replace those people with people that are willing to, not just willing, but eager to buy into your rules of the game. Which leads me to another point, and that is once you've created a really sound set of rules and a culture statement that your team buy into, you then need to incorporate that into your recruitment process. Really, really important, so that when you are interviewing and recruiting new people, the point of culture becomes a really important part of that. And get your team involved in the interview process so that the candidates can see, you can have some candidates who say, wow, this is exactly what I've been looking for. This is what I've been waiting for. And look how, much the team are committed to this and buy into this. This is what I want. Because they're probably coming from organizations that don't have anything like this. And you can have other candidates who go, actually, whoa, this is too weird. This is not what I want. I just wanted a job. I don't buy into all of this kind of crap. And they'll deselect themselves from the recruitment process. And this keeps the points of culture alive as well. So we don't just have a culture statement that gets stuck into a drawer somewhere. All right, moving on. Quick question for you. We're going to come back to rules of the game in a little bit. Quick question for you. How many relationships are there in your company? Do you know how to calculate how many relationships there are in your company? Now, I use this formula whenever I do workshops on communication, but I thought it was appropriate here. Here's how you calculate the number of relationships in your business. I mean unique relationships. Here's the formula. If the number of employees in your organization is represented by X, then the number of relationships in your organization is X squared minus X divided by 2. So for example, if you have 10 employees, that's 10 squared is 100. minus 10 is 90, divided by 2 is 45. So if you have 10 employees in your company, you actually have 45 unique relationships, because it's me to person A, me to person B, me to person C, me to person D, me to person E. And then it's person A to person B, person A to person C, person A to person D. So there's a lot. So if you've got more than 10 employees in your company, the number of relationships goes up exponentially. And that's a lot of interaction. That's a lot of different personalities, different behavioral styles, different communication styles, a lot of potential for things to be going wrong. So hence the importance of having rules of the game that everybody understands and everybody buys into and that are non-negotiable. Part of that is how we communicate with each other. So again, this is a slide I use in my communication workshops, but I don't apologize for showing it again, because we need to be reminded of this. One of our rules of the game needs to be we treat each other with respect and we treat ourselves with self-respect. Because if we're down in this lower quadrant where we have a low respect for other people, and what that means is I don't care what you want, I don't care what you have to say, I don't care what your position is, and I'm not going to listen, but also I'm miserable to get myself. So if I'm miserable, I'm going to make everybody else miserable. We call that manipulative aggressive. It's a lose-lose situation. I'm losing, I'm miserable. I want to make sure that everybody around me is miserable as well. And obviously that's poison in an organization. We need to get rid of those people as quickly as possible. There's another place we don't want to be, and that's where we have a high self-respect, but a low respect for others. So again, I don't care about you. I don't care what you have to say. I'm not interested in your position or needs, wants, and desires or opinion. I'm not going to listen, and I don't care. All I care about is me, and that I get what I want and I'm successful. We call that office politics. Office politics means I've got a different agenda than everybody else. And in psychobabble terms, that's hostile aggressive, and it's a win-lose situation. It's not going to work. But the opposite of that is a really interesting one. We probably don't realize how much this goes on and what an impact this could potentially have on a business. And that's down here in the lower right, when we have a high respect for the other person, but a low self-respect. So what that looks like is I care about what you have to say and what you need over and above my own needs. Now that might sound heroic and admirable, but in fact, all it really is passive. What it means is I want to make sure that everybody likes me and everybody is happy with me. So at the expense of my own needs, wants, and desires, I'm just going to give in and say yes to whatever everybody else wants. Or maybe I hate conflict. I want to avoid any conflict. I want to avoid confrontation or uncomfortable situations. So I'm just going to give in and say yes to what everybody else wants. We call that being passive, and that's not a good place to be either. That's a win-lose situation, because even though you might win, I'm going to lose. If you're a leader or a business owner or a manager of people and you've got a team member who's passive, then they might be saying yes and doing everything you tell them to do, but they may not be happy. And we're not meeting the needs of that individual as well. So we need to make sure we're communicating very well with people who are passive in an organization. We need to make sure we're dealing well with people who are hostile, aggressive. And we need to be getting rid of people who are manipulative, aggressive. So where do we want to be? Well, we want to be on the top right. And the top right is when we have a high respect for the other person. I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to consider your point of view. I'm going to take into account your needs, wants, and desires in your position. And you're also going to listen to mine. You're going to hear what I have to say. You're going to take into account my point of view. And we're going to have a conversation around this and make a decision. And we call that being assertive. And I think a lot of people misunderstand what assertive means. I certainly hear the word being misused a lot. People say, you always know where that person stands. She's very assertive, you know. She calls it as she sees it. And that's not really what assertive means. Assertive doesn't necessarily mean blunt. And assertive doesn't necessarily mean direct. All assertive means is, I'm going to listen to you and you're going to listen to me. Now, if you're the decision maker, it doesn't mean that you've got to compromise whenever anybody else has a different point of view. I can be an assertive leader and say, listen, I've listened to, not listen. I can say, I've heard what you've had to say. Thank you very much for your contribution. Now here's my issue and here's where we stand. So we're going to have to do it this way. We're going to have to do it my way. Now, that's still a respectful way of speaking to somebody else, even though you're still going to go with your decision. And that's a win-win. That's called assertive. I'm listening to you. I want to make sure that we're all in this and we're all together. So this is really important when people start coming back to work after the lockdown lifts, is we need to make sure that everybody's got an assertive manner of speaking to each other. We've got respect for each other. We're treating each other the right way, and we're making sure that we're being treated the right way as well. So when you teach this slide to your team, hostile, aggressive, and assertive and passive may not be the best wordage to use. So in Action Coach, we've changed it to something that's easier to remember and easier to understand. And it goes like this: I'm okay and you're okay. Look, we disagree, we've got different issues, but I'm okay and you're okay, and that's the way we communicate to each other. It's not I'm not okay, you're okay. We're not being passive. And it's not I'm okay, but you're not okay, which is aggressive. We're both okay, we disagree, and this is the way we communicate with each other. So again, here's another slide where if you just needed to create a quick, point of culture for your business, it could be this one slide, because how we communicate with each other makes all the difference in the world in our business. So I hope this slide was helpful to you. If you email me, I can send you a copy of it. So how do we keep our rules of the game from getting stuffed into a drawer somewhere or hanging behind glass in some managing director's office, nowhere to be seen? Well, we need to make sure we've got communication rhythm in our business. Communication rhythm means a consistent method and means and schedule for communicating with our team to ensure that the communication stays positive and flowing and controlled. So what I recommend is that every Monday morning you have a meeting with your management team, your leadership team, or whoever your second in commands are, and you're laying out a plan for the week. You're identifying any issues coming up. Everybody's doing say, do, go. Everybody's communicating, keeping the communication flowing throughout the organization. If you're a very small business and you don't have a management team and you're the managers, then again, you want to get all your team together, ideally on a Monday morning and maybe again on a Thursday or a Friday, but definitely on a Monday morning to set the stage for the week, for sure. And one of the things you can do in your regular meetings is have one agenda slot allocated to your rules of the game. So let's say you've got 14 points of culture in your business, and you get to that agenda item in the meeting. You can say, okay, today we're going to talk about point of culture number 10, fun. All right, how are we doing on fun, guys? And you open up a little discussion around fun. Next week, the point of culture that we discussed in the team meeting might be education. All right, we're going to talk about education this week. Where do we need to be doing better? Where are we doing well? And you get a discussion going around that. It might only be 5 minutes a meeting. But what you're showing your team is every single week, because the agenda reminds us as such, we're going to pull out our points of culture and we're going to keep the sucker alive. And we're going to continue to hold each other accountable. We're going to continue to use it in the recruitment process. And we're going to build our company around these rules of the game. So make sure you got a communication rhythm in your business that suits your company, but make sure you stick to it, because we always do what we say we're going to do. So be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you ask for. If you say every Monday morning we're going to have a weekly meeting, you then have to have that meeting come hell or high water. I don't care whether there's a virus or a snow day or half the team are off sick, you're going to have that meeting, even if half the team don't show up. And finally, here's a strategy that, again, everybody who I work with understands what a Wiffle is, but if you don't, I really think this is going to help you with your team. So a Wiffle is basically a strategy that I teach teams that it encourages and facilitates open and honest communication in a safe environment. And the way it works is it goes like this. A Wiffle is an acronym. Wiffle stands for what I feel like expressing. And in a Wiffle, each person in the meeting takes turns speaking. They can, when they're speaking, they can say whatever they want to say. They can talk about whatever they want to talk about. And while they're speaking, nobody else is allowed to interrupt. Nobody's allowed to say a word until you're done. And I want you to think about that for a second. How cool is that? How often in life, certainly in business and very certainly in meetings, how often do we get an opportunity to speak and nobody else says a word? Because when somebody's speaking in a meeting, what does everybody else want to do? Of course, they want to interrupt. They want to challenge what you just said. Now we can't do that, and here's why. Or no, we tried that last year. Or they're going to say, I already thought of that. We already talked about that. There could be, people just want to chime in with their 2 cents. And in a Wiffle, we do away with that completely. So everybody has an opportunity to speak. So the way it works is the person who's about to Wiffle says, what I feel like expressing is, and then they talk. And then they finish with, and that's what I feel like expressing. And the reason you finish with that is because nobody's allowed to interrupt you. So if, if you just stop talking without topping it off, people don't know you're done. So they're just going to sit there and stare at you because they're worried that maybe you're just thinking and nobody wants to talk over you. So you have to finish with, and that's what I feel like expressing. And then you pass it on to the next person and you say, well, what do you feel like expressing? Well, what I feel like expressing is, and then they talk. And then they finish with, and that's what I feel like expressing. And it goes around the room. Doesn't need to go in order. The person whiffling, you could have a rule where the person whiffling passes on to somebody else. They can choose whoever they want to choose. You can have other variations and rules of the Wiffle. I know one very popular rule, which I recommend, is that nobody's allowed to talk about anybody who's not there. You're not allowed to talk about anybody who's not in the room with you. That could be a Wiffle, okay? But other than that, it really needs to be a place, it needs to be a strategy where everybody understands it's a safe environment. It's my time to express what I feel I need to express. Can a Wiffle sometimes become uncomfortable in a meeting? Yeah, absolutely. It can sometimes be uncomfortable. But I'd rather we dealt with things in a Wiffle than at the proverbial water cooler at the meeting after the meeting when the 2 people that are buddy-buddy get together and say, can you believe what so-and-so said in the meeting? Or I can't believe I got interrupted. So if you want to implement Wiffle in your business, again, email me. I don't mind. I'll just send you a PDF. It's a 1-pager on how to do a Wiffle, give you some ideas, and I would really encourage you to start doing a Wiffle in your business. So I think I'm coming up to the end here. Yeah, I am. So look, a few actions, then we'll do a bit of Q&A. Start typing questions into the question box, guys, if you have any, and I'd be delighted to answer them. Get with your action coach and make your 90-day plan. Okay, so I've got 90-day planning coming up 17th of June. It's going to be online because we don't know when lockdown's going to end. We don't have a venue, but we're going to be doing 90-day planning on Zoom, and you're welcome to join us. There is a small investment, a nominal fee to join this because there's a lot of intellectual property there. So if you're not an action coach client, I would still recommend you book in. Just visit my website and you can book in. Like I say, there's a small fee, but it's 100% guaranteed. But I would definitely encourage you to make sure you have a 90-day plan for returning to work. The plan may only have a 30-day shelf life, but we still make sure we write a plan. Okay. Take 5 ideas that you've learned from today's session or been reminded about from today's session. So these are your top 5 takeaways. Go through your notes, write them down. Okay, and commit to taking action on these 5 today. Start today. I know it's nearly the end of the day. It's about 20 to 4, but you've got time to at least make some commitments to take some actions today. And then email me and tell me what they are, please. So if anybody has any questions, now is the time. I'm going to thank you. Yep, welcome very much. Will you please send me the Wiffle document? Yep, happy to send you the Wiffle document. But if I don't know you, I don't necessarily have your email address, so can you please email me and I will send you the Wiffle document. Okay, good. Oh, here's a good question coming up. Is there a time limit to a Wiffle? Great question. You can do it however you want. Now, a long Wiffle is what I call a waffle, and a quick Wiffle is a quiffle. I just made those up for fun. But look, personally, it depends on your time constraints. It depends on the number of people you have in a meeting, obviously. But for me, I think a Wiffle is so important that I would rather there not be a time limit. If somebody's taken way too long every time they do a Wiffle, you can have a quiet word with them outside of the meeting and say, look, love your Wiffles, man, but we do have a lot to get on with. But I would certainly not buzz somebody or interrupt somebody because they're taking too long. If they're expressing for a reason. We need to let them Wiffle. But like I said, if it's happening for too long, have a quiet word with them outside the meeting. Great. Okay, next chat. Details for 90-day planning. Yeah, details for 90-day planning on my website, but just give me a call. Let me just put my contact details up now. give me a call or get in touch with me via these details, and I'll be happy to share with you the, what goes on in 90-day planning. I haven't really written the agenda yet, but I'm modifying it slightly so that we can do it more effectively on Zoom. Please also follow me on Twitter and connect with me on LinkedIn, and follow me on Facebook or like me on Facebook. And I'll like you back and I'll follow you back. Guys, I'm putting a lot of this stuff on my YouTube channel. I'd be really, really grateful if you can subscribe to my YouTube channel. And if you watch any of my videos, please like, share, and comment these. My daughter is really on my case to do more with social media. She's trying to get me involved with Instagram, which I'm really, really resisting. But she's insisting that I get, do more with my YouTube stuff. So please make sure if you do watch these videos, I'd be really grateful. You can just comment, like, and share those things. Any other? Oh, yep. Excellent. Thank you very much, guys. I don't think I have any other questions coming up at the moment, but just wanted to say really appreciate you coming on the webinar. I do believe this is getting recorded. I can't make any promises, but if it is getting recorded, it'll be up on my YouTube channel in the next day or two. Hope you enjoyed it. Please don't forget to send me your top takeaways for today, and have a great rest of the week. Take care. Thanks again. Bye-bye.